What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction. In this one we have, this is why you should not move to Australia. What? The great land down under? Why would you not want to move there? Before we dive in, if you happen to enjoy, don't forget to smash subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and let's get to it.
I feel like everyone and their mom wants to move to Australia. Australia is always looked at in a good light. There's very nice people, there's very good coffee, the beaches, the sun. It's got it all. Or so you would think.
Oh my god.
Oh, can't do that. That's, yeah, them huntsman spiders. Can't do the huntsman. Y'all know that, even though I know they're not harmful to humans, still can't do that.
Oh my god.
If you're thinking of moving to Australia, I'll stop you right there because it is not exactly what it seems. Today I'll be going into the details of why you should not move to Australia, and some things that I wish people told me before I moved. So you probably hear from my accent, it's not Australian, it is an American accent. Yes. I was originally born in Australia, so I do have Australian citizenship, but then I moved over to America when I was about 8 years old. So I remembered enough about Australia, but not enough that was core to living here like an adult. I really wish I had a video like this to watch before I moved over, just so I could get an idea of what I was actually getting into. So I'm going to be specifically talking about Melbourne today because that's where I'm living. Also, I know everyone pronounces it Melbourne, but I don't have an Australian accent, so I'm not going to say it the same way that the Australians are. I'm sorry. So this video can come across quite pessimistic. There are a lot of positives about living in Australia, but I'm just focusing on why you shouldn't move here and some things to think about before you make the move. First thing that no one really talks about is the hay fever. The hay fever in the city especially is so bad in Australia. I think it's a combination of having really strong wind and then also in the city, all of the trees are the same kind of type and they also lose their pollen all at the same time. So you're walking in the city and it feels like snow is coming down and hitting your face, but really it's pollen. And it's just, oh my gosh, my eyes get so itchy, my throat gets itchy. It's just horrible. Everyone pretty much has to take antihistamines because it's so bad. I don't know what it is, but it's horrible. And then in combination with the wind, because it actually is quite windy here, so that's another point. Because of the wind and with all the pollen, it just hurts your face so bad. I think the reason behind the hay fever is also geographically because we have the larger bit of Australia is all quite desert. A lot of the winds are really strong coming across the continent because they're warmer from the north and they're coming down to the south where it's colder. And then in combination of that, you have the Antarctic winds coming up and they kind of meet. I don't actually know if this is totally right, but this is what I've been told. But then those winds...
They said I don't know if it's totally right, but it's what I've been told. I did the research on it. But hey, to the pollen falling on you to the point where it feels like snow or to the point where you can feel it, nah, that's too much. That's too much pollen. I couldn't handle it. My allergies and sinuses and all, it couldn't handle it. I would be suffering. Absolutely suffering.
Meet in the middle and just create so much wind and so much turbulence, and we get all of this really strong wind and also just the pollen with it. So it's just a disaster. You've probably heard of the bugs as well and just the insects. I find they're not as bad in Melbourne as they are in the further north cities. So that could be like the Sunshine Coast or Sydney or Brisbane. In Melbourne, we definitely still do have a lot of insects. Some of the most poisonous insects and spiders and snakes live here. I actually haven't even seen a snake here. I saw more in California, which I find kind of interesting, but maybe I'm just not out in the bush because I'm scared, to be honest. But especially living in a house, there are a lot of spiders just kind of crawling everywhere. You definitely have to check your shoes and have to check, like, if you're going into a shed, you have to look for some spiders as well, making sure there's nothing in there. So it's just like an extra thought process that you have to have. Okay, I gotta make sure that there's no spiders everywhere. I feel like if you live more regionally, you definitely see more of the presence of the insects and the animals. But I'm quite close to the city at this point, so it's not as bad as I think it could be. In combination with all of the insects, the flies are
Everybody says
they're just different from Californian flies. I don't know what it is, but they like stick to your face so much more. They're just more annoying. They're also way bigger. They're the size of like a US quarter sometimes, and they're called blowflies, and they're absolutely huge. So if you're someone that gets really annoyed by flies, maybe stay away from Australia because they're everywhere. Luckily in Melbourne it gets cold enough during the winter that you don't have to worry about them then. But when the summertime rolls around, oh my God, they're
They
so
out and
bad.
about.
Another hard thing about coming...
See, I feel like I've heard that from many different videos about them flies being an absolute problem out there in Australia. An absolute problem, just in terms of them being so annoying and frustrating to deal with. Spiders, I can't see. I don't got the sense of checking my shoes every time I put them on, or checking the shed, or looking around for spider. When I see spiders in my crib, we're talking about the tiniest, We're talking about baby spiders. It looks like when I see spiders inside of my apartment. But yeah, if I were to like walk around and see a huntsman, I would be scared for my life. I'll absolutely be scared because I'm not used to seeing spiders that big. Even though I know they're not harmful. I know. Can't.
Coming to Australia is actually visas. Luckily, I was an Australian citizen, so when I came here, it was completely easy and I didn't have to worry about it. However, if you're someone coming from another country, visas can be a little bit more difficult to get. When I was in the US, an American visa and getting permanent residency is like insanely tough. So when I actually moved to the US, I wasn't even a citizen of the US, so I had to go into the whole process of getting one. It ended up taking me 15 years to get citizenship, which is insane.
Dang.
Australia is not as bad, but it's still difficult in comparison to other countries. But a good thing that Australia has is actually called a partner visa. You can actually come over to Australia if you're dating or married or just have a partnership with someone who is Australian and has a citizenship. I know so many people that have met an Australian abroad and then moved over here to Australia and then been on the partner visa. So that gives them full working rights. They're able to travel, do everything that you pretty much can
There you
as
go.
a permanent resident, I think. Also, within Melbourne, there are a lot of Irish people that move over, and they have all told me the story of doing the 88 days. So obviously it's not just an Irish thing, but I just know a lot of immigrants that come over that are Irish. How their working holiday visa works is that you get the opportunity to work for a company for 6 months, but if you want to extend out of that 6 months, you have to go do regional farm work for 88 days. Which is pretty much like 3 months of working on a farm in some regional part of Australia. Some people really like it. I've heard good stories, but at the same time, you would not catch me out in a farm digging or gardening or anything like that. No thanks. So definitely keep that in mind if you are coming over on a working holiday visa, that's part of Australia's immigration policy. If you're someone who is really pale or someone who's very...
I feel like, I have heard about the farm story. And I heard good stories about people enjoying working on the farm, like it wasn't bad. But I also heard bad stories about working on the farms and people who didn't like it not one bit. And I 3 months of working on a farm just, I don't know. I'd have to say after 6 months, I'll be like, I love you, Australia. I can't do no farm work. It ain't for me. That's not my life. But from the visas they're talking about, it sounds like a partnership visa would probably be, I guess, the easiest visa to attain or the best visa to attain until you can become an Australian citizen. It sounds like the partner visa is the visa to go for. I don't know. Y'all type me in the comment section. What's the number one visa?
Very sensitive to sunlight. The UV here is so high and so dangerous. You can burn sometimes in like 15 minutes. As a white person, I definitely have had my fair share of burns, but the bad ones have definitely been in Australia. You have to be so aware of putting on sunscreen, reapplying. When I was in California, I could maybe put 1 layer of sunscreen on and be good for the whole day, but here, you have to reapply every 2 hours or you're actually going to get burned. One time I was at a tennis tournament and it was kind of cloudy that day. It wasn't too hot, but I was wearing a long sleeve, jeans, shoes, and a hat. And I had put sunscreen on my face, but I hadn't put sunscreen on my hands. So my hands got burnt. Like, what? You can't win, man. You can't win. So it's definitely something you just have to be mindful of and you have to be careful because no one wants to get burnt. So this one is a little bit more specific to Melbourne, but that is if you really like good beaches, don't come to Melbourne for beaches. When you think of Australian beaches, they're not in Melbourne. They're probably in Sydney or they're probably in Perth. Melbourne just does not have good beaches. I'm talking more about the city. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think it's more just how it was designed and how the layout is. The beaches in Melbourne are not the move. They're very small, they're kind of dirty sometimes, and the water is so cold. And also, there's jellyfish in the water certain times of the year. So I've had friends going out and get stung by jellyfish. Like,
Nah.
I don't want to do that. And sometimes there's sharks too. Like,
see,
more examples of just how bad the animals are here. But don't get me started on a drop bear.
I'll let you know, I don't leave them Melbourne beaches alone. Hey, if it's, first of all, she said, hey, Melbourne beaches ain't on nothing. They not even good beaches. Then she said, you got to worry about the jellyfish. Then she said, sometimes it's going to be sharks. That's too much. Outside of that, you got to apply and reapply sunscreen every 2 hours or you're going to get burnt. Okay. Yes, I mean, she's giving some valid reasons to kind of keep your distance. I still want to travel to Australia, kind of experience it for a week or two, and just kind of live it up in Australia. I feel like meet some people and that can just show me around, and it'd be pretty awesome. But but I'm not a beach person anyway, so this really wouldn't faze me. I'm not a big beach guy.
I'll explain that later in the video because we gotta save it for last. If you're someone who doesn't like a good time out or doesn't really like drinking or socializing, don't come to Australia. The culture here is so big on going out and getting a drink, you know, having a beer with your friends or going out for cocktails. It's very quite heavy on a drinking culture. I, for one, don't drink a lot. Maybe I have like 1 or 2 drinks on a night out. They do have like good alternatives, like there's mocktails, and so you can just have soda or water. I don't think it's really that people make me feel bad about it, but I think it's just such a culture of going out and getting a drink, and if you're not drinking, it's kind of like, oh wait, why are you not drinking? Is there a reason? But I did have one Irish guy tell me that he started drinking at 12, so I think that beats it. If you're someone that travels a lot, Australia is really good to travel within the country, but because it's such a remote part of the world, it's quite difficult to travel out to. So for example, if you're going to Europe, it's going to take you at least 24 hours, sometimes more than 24 hours. And if you get a flight over to New York City, for example, that's also going to take you more than 24 hours to get to. It's just so remote, it's so difficult to travel around. I mean, definitely a lot of Australians travel. How many times have you been in another country and there's a random Australian? I feel like we're everywhere. Another harder thing is that the dollar just doesn't go as far in Australia as it does in other parts of the world. So for example, at the recording of this video, the US dollar to the Australian dollar is roughly like 60 to 70 cents. So anytime you buy something in the US or maybe in Europe as well with the euro, you're pretty much paying double what you would in Australia. So if you really care about how far your dollar goes, maybe you shouldn't move to Australia. It's not the best. Also, to add on to the dollar as well, the cost of living here is really quite high. Even as a middle class person, I feel like I can still live a good life better than I was in California.
To me, like the Australian dollars, like compared to the US dollar, Australian dollar is 60, 70 cents, right? Is what she was saying? Because I believe that would be the correct way around. Yeah. Because I think the pound is more valuable than a dollar at the moment, and the dollar is more valuable than Australian dollar, I believe. I could be absolutely mistaken. But yeah, definitely wouldn't do the beaches. She talked about some other things, and I'm trying to remember exactly what she was talking about. The dollar thing kind of threw me. Know about the cost of living in Australia. Know it can be expensive, but I also know they do pay more. So, and when you kind of add in the fact that they pay more than a lot of other places, yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, but you're making more money. At the end of the day, you really got to look at, well, how much money do I have left over after I pay everything? And that's where you get with, I guess, which is the better, what outweighs what, in a sense. And let's see what else we got. Drinking culture. I don't mind having a drink. I'm not a big drinker at all, but hey, if you want to go out with friends, y'all want to have a good time, y'all want to drink, man, let's go out and have a blast. I'm down for it.
Yeah, where I feel like that cost of living is like a whole different space.
Bruh.
But the cost of living here is quite expensive. Groceries have really gotten more expensive. The housing crisis is insane as well. So if you're looking to move, it's actually really, really difficult to find a place without renters history. So what I'd recommend is there is a Facebook group called Fairy Floss that you can join. That's where a ton of people put their sublets, or maybe they're transferring a lease. That's how I ended up transferring my lease at my last apartment. So that's for people who are traveling or moving. So they just put their listing up on Facebook. It's a really great way if you you don't have renter's history to find a place. So reflecting on the dollar as well, you will just generally earn less money here than you would, say, in the US. I know I'm doing a lot of comparisons to the US, but it's just what I know, so I'm going to talk about what I know. There is still really strong career growth. Because I work in recruitment, I know so many people who are earning a really, really good dollar, to be honest, and have multiple properties, like they're very well off. So you can definitely do that here. I just feel like if you're trying to make an exorbitant amount of money, the US is more where I feel like you can flourish because the taxes here are quite high as well in comparison. I'd recommend looking up what tax bracket you're in and having a look there because I think it's very personal for your taxes rather than me just kind of giving you some random stats. Except if you're working in the mines, you're gonna make bank. I've heard of people working in the mines and their starting salary is like 200K. It's crazy. It's very high risk and you're very bored, but you'll make a lot of money. One thing that I've heard a lot on...
Just give me a year or two in the mines. That's all I need. Send me to the mines for just a year, maybe 2 years, and we're coming out good. I'm coming out good. I could sacrifice a year or two.
TikTok actually is tall poppy syndrome. It refers to people with notable public success who excessively promote their own achievements and opinions. Intense scrutiny and criticism of such person is named as cutting down the tall poppy. What it really means to me is that if someone has a lot of success and talks about their success, they're kind of cut down and resented for talking about it. In America, I feel like it's very normal to talk about your successes. I'm definitely like that. And coming here, you know, I'll talk about my successes and I think people quite support it. But at the same time, I've just heard a lot on social media and in just different news. I think it's more within smaller communities that have grown up in Australia. People will really hate on you if you're successful. So because of tall poppy syndrome, a lot of people just kind of like to coast and sit where they're at. They don't want huge successes for themselves. I know there's obviously some outliers and people want success, but people just kind of don't want to rock the boat, don't want to over talk about themselves. They want to remain humble, and that's completely fine as well. But I think that's something to consider if you're looking to move to Australia. One interesting thing,
I feel like from what I've heard about it, and she's obviously lived in Australia. I've never been to Australia, so she probably has a much better grasp of it than me. But from different videos that I've watched, what I've heard about it is more so of people like bragging like so much about their success and get to a point where like people get tired of hearing it, and then you kind of get cut down, but not necessarily just like being successful and like I guess enjoying your success or maybe talking about your success, but when you get to the point where you're bragging like so freaking much that people are like, it's time to cut this person down. Like I said, she actually lives in Australia. I do not, so she's probably more. She probably grasps the concept way more than I do.
Thing here is the drinking water. Now, I find the drinking water in Melbourne totally fine, but I actually had a friend who had really bad digestive problems, horrible health issues from drinking the water. I have no issue with it, and I drink tap water all the time, and this is just a unique case with her. She has to only buy bottled water now because what's in the water is fluoride. So tap water is totally safe to drink, but I think with her case, she's quite sensitive to fluoride. If you're someone who's quite sensitive to minerals and other things within water, definitely look up the list of what's in Australian tap water and consider it for yourself. If you like consistent weather, don't move to Australia. I'm sure so many people talk about how bad the weather is. You'll get 4 seasons in one day here, and it's absolutely true. There's so many times where I've dressed up for a nice sunny day and I am freezing and shaking and I need to go buy a jumper. Overall, it doesn't even snow in Melbourne. I think there's some other parts of Victoria where it does snow, so it doesn't get that cold, but I think it's around like -5 degrees Celsius, but it does get so hot in the summer. It's always around like 40 degrees, sometimes more than 40 degrees. It's horrible. And because of those really high temperatures, wildfires are definitely a thing. I know California has really bad wildfires, so I feel like it's something that I'm a little bit more used to, but still, it's really tough. So I know that was all quite pessimistic on why you should not move to Australia, but there are also so many other reasons that you should move to Australia. I'm planning to do another video. Let's make this a little bit lighter, and down in the comments, please put something that is actually great about Australia and that you love about Australia so that people don't get turned off, because this is an amazing country. I really love being here, and I'm so thankful to be a citizen and be born here. My hand is getting tired from holding this mic, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and much love. Oh my god, I almost forgot to talk about the drop bear. So this is probably one of the most scariest things that they have in Australia.
It's a
no one
koala.
really talks about them because they're actually so scary. I haven't even described what a drop bear is. A drop bear is
It's a koala bear. A little koala. An innocent, adorable little koala. Don't fall for it. The Australians be trying to trick us. Don't fall for it. But Australia definitely sounds like an incredible country. Although in this video, she gave you the reasons that hey, you probably shouldn't come to Australia. Weather's hot. Weather's unpredictable. Wildfires can happen. It's drinking culture. You will burn very quickly. Cost of living is high. You got the housing crisis. You got the rental crisis. You got a lot of things happening in Australia. But overall, from the many videos I've seen, Australia is an amazing country. That's all we have. If you guys enjoyed, please don't forget to subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up. Check out the next one. I'll see y'all next time.